Hello again. A few weeks ago I did a couple of videos on the Hoover 160 motor explaining how they were prone to armature failures. I showed you a 262 motor but I didn't go into any detail of it. But after I'd finished the 160 filming, I did do a bit of filming on this motor which I haven't put on YouTube. If you've not seen a 262, this is a 262. Now, albeit this one is in pretty poor condition, the paint's all peeling off, but then it is over 65 odd years old. This one was brought into our shop probably about 35 years ago for repair, and we found the armature had actually gone on it, so it was scrapped basically. I don't think we could even get an armature by that time. I'll just take the hood off and show you. It's got a rather nice, actually a Bakelite hood. The advantage of a Bakelite hood over the later plastic ones, of course, is it doesn't actually go brittle. A lot of the plastic things today, you know, they're fine when they're new. They look very nice and shiny and nice colours, but by the time they, you know, get on a bit, gradually the plastic does become brittle and they're very prone to breakage. Inside you've got the 262 motor here, dirt finder lamp on the front, which is 25 watt heavy duty. Basically the bag's held on by two knurled nuts, and underneath you've got the Hoover agitator with the original 262 straight brush strips, and one wing nut to take the bottom plate off to change the valve. It's a very simple machine actually, the 262. Now this particular machine was made in 1947. They actually started producing the 262 in July 1945, just as the war was ending, and they made it till 1949 when it was replaced with the 612, which is my favourite machine actually, by the way. But it was a very noisy machine, the 262, but they're also reputed to be one of the best for picking up off a carpet. But there you are, that's the 262, and now I'm going to show you what I did to the motor, so hopefully it might be a little bit of interest to some people. It's slightly smaller than the 160, but what I'm going to do is just have a look. I'll bet you the armature in this won't be so bad. So I'll just take the brushes out and have a look. Now that doesn't seem as though that spring's strong enough to start with. Oh, look at that. So straight away we can see that the brush is worn down quite badly. It's also been arcing on this end, which indicates either a sticking brush or it's not touching properly and not making a good condition and arcing, or the armature's burnt out, but that is pretty badly worn, and also the spring is too short in my opinion. So we'll have a look at the other brush, see what that's like. This has been in my shed for many years untouched. This one looks a bit ropey as well. Yeah, that one's not quite so badly worn, it's not burnt so bad, but as you can see the spring is slightly longer on that one than that one. This should give you some idea of what the brushes for a 262 should look like. These are actually Hoover 1334 Junior brushes, which are readily available, and they fit perfectly in a 262. That's what we always used to use in the 262 motor anyway. So you can see how much they're worn down, not only the brushes but the springs as well. There's no life in those springs at all, is there? Looking at the state of the carbon brushes, it could be that the armature's okay on this one, so we'll take it apart and have a look. Of course the only real way to tell is to put new brushes in and actually run it up, but because this has been in storage such a long time it probably needs servicing anyway. The bearing feels really rough on it. It's not worn, the bearing isn't worn as such, I think it's just dry, there's no play on there. What you can tell is by, if you move the fan pulley up and down, if you can move it up and down, that normally indicates the ball bearing's worn out in the bottom of the motor. If you can move it sideways, that way, that indicates a worn top bearing, but both seem alright, so it is just noisy. So there's the top bearing there. That one's broken, but that doesn't matter. Take the little fan off out the way. And then there's these screws around here, which I've already loosened actually. Unlike the 160s that wouldn't come out, I found these came out okay. I've got them all out apart from the two. There's captive nuts that just fall out. When I say captive, they've got a moulding around them to stop them turning when you do it up tight. They're not actually captive as such. There we go. Two's out. I've taken all the others out, now we can pull the armature out. Incidentally, before I take the armature out, look at the fan. Can you see the blade is actually broken off there? and that will put the thing, that will make it really noisy. It will put it totally out of balance. Now the answer is another fan, and from my point of view that's not a problem because I've got fans. But if you were desperate and you hadn't got a fan and you want to get it working, all you need to do is to take the opposite, something off the other side of the fan here. If you broke something off there, roughly the same as that, it's not perfect, but it will get it going again and it will quieten it down as long as it's sort of balanced. So there we are, there's the field coil in there, look, dirty and dusty, just put that out the way. And there's the armature. Now actually, that armature, although you can see it is worn down a little bit, it's nice and shiny. There is no sign on it of any burning. All the connections here, the soldered connections are intact, and I would say that's probably going to be alright. So I'm just going to take the fan off the end. Don't forget it's a left hand thread, so it turns the way you'd think you were tightening it up. Fan pulley off, and just spin the fan around and gradually it will come off if you pull it like that. And note that you've got, as on the other machines, you've got washers and you've got a spacer there, and then the armature should pull out. Now there's the bearing in there, and this is what it actually looks like when you take it out. Now that bearing has been in there since it was produced actually. You can tell that because these rivets here, the 3 rivets in there that hold that on, they're factory rivets, they haven't been touched. If that bearing had been replaced at some point, then that would almost certainly have pot rivets in there to hold that on. So that goes back to the day it was produced. So if you want to grease that bearing, you need one of these to do it properly. You pop that in there, force it down, that forces the grease to the bearing, as in this one you see. You put that in there and force it through until it comes out, till the grease comes out the other end. You can do it either end, it doesn't matter. Without one of these, it's very difficult to grease this type of bearing. If you're absolutely desperate and the bearing's had it and you need to get in there, there is one way you can do it, but it's not the right way. It's a bit of a bodge. You could grind this outside edge off here so it fell apart, and then pop it back in, and then the rivets would hold the 2 plates together and the bearing inside, wouldn't it? So that's a 262 motor, an armature, and I think that will be okay, but I can't be sure until I've tried some brushes in. But the brushes are a good indication. When you see a short one and a long one, and the one looks shiny and the other looks burnt, that usually indicates that that one's been sticking or not making good contact, and judging by the spring length, then it's hopeless. It should be a lot longer than that for a 262. Anyway, that's a 262 motor, folks, with a broken fan. Well, I've put the 262 motor back together again. Bear in mind the 262 was always said to be about the noisiest Hoover they made, although it was a very good machine at picking up. I've got the motor connected up. Please don't try this at home unless you're fully qualified. I'll stand well back just in case, and I'll switch on, but it will be noisy. You see, there you are. What did I tell you? 262, reliable. I knew it would go. If it had been a 160, I wouldn't have had much confidence, but a 262 motor, I had a feeling it would be okay with that armature. It was just a case of those carbon brushes being worn right down. So at least we've got a 262 motor working anyway, so that's something. So that's about it, folks. I've established that the 262 motor actually works. The armature's going to be fine, so if I want to, I can actually put this one, or the armature out of it indeed, into this 262 here, and get this one working again. That's if I ever get time. I mean, they've been in the shed for such a long time now, and they are deteriorating somewhat. I mean, this one would need respraying, wouldn't it? Well, that's all for now, folks. Thanks very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.